In necrological service in honor of the late former Senate President Juan Ponce Enrile is hereby declared open.
Please rise for the Lord's Prayer to be sung by Los Cantantes de Manila. After the doxology, please remain standing for the singing of the Philippine National Anthem.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Bayang magiliw, pela sa silanganan, alam ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyat ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig, di ka ba sisihin? Sa dagat at bundok, sa simayan, sa langit pumagaw, may dilag kang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kisap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagdilingning, ang bituin at araw niyang kailan pa may di matililing. Lupa ng araw na may ating pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya na pag may mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
The Honorable Richard Gordon will now deliver his eulogy.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to greet our first and foremost the family of Senate President Juan Ponce Enrile, Katrina, and where's Jack? Is he here? All right. And of course, all the grandsons and grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren. Senate President Soto, distinguished colleagues, it's good to be back here again, although not in this way, but nonetheless, thank you very much, Mrs. Arroyo. I didn't recognize you, Mrs. President. It is a profound honor to be entrusted by the Enrile family to speak about a man of immense and undeniable historical significance, a giant of Philippine history. With the passing of Juan Ponce Enrile, our nation has lost a statesman of rare endurance and extensive experience, a sharp and disciplined mind, a Harvard-trained lawyer, a builder and breaker of eras, and a figure who left deep marks in the fabric of our national story. For more than 60 years, JPE stood at the very center of Philippine political life. Through the defining years of martial law, the restoration of democracy, his long service at the Senate, and across generations of reform, upheaval, and renewal. They say that the world always steps aside to let any man pass who knows where he's going. Juan Ponce Enrile, or JP, was such a man. He lifted himself by sheer grit. Through his memoir, we learn that having been born out of wedlock, he grew up enduring social discrimination. Classmates mocked him as a bastard, his own words. He thought, yes, I'm a bastard. By accident. But you are all bastards by choice. He was born into deep poverty. He walked barefoot on the streets of Cagayan to stay in school. He worked as a houseboy for his aunts. And at only 17, when the war against the Japanese broke out, he joined the guerrilla resistance. He was captured and imprisoned by the Japanese as the Americans landed in Leyte. After the war, his father finally acknowledged him, and an opportunity for a better education was now available. He excelled academically, graduated cum laude at the Ateneo, became salutatorian of the UP College of Law, and earned his Master's of Laws from Harvard University with specialized training in international law and taxation. Who would have imagined that this boy, born into struggle, exitless poverty, raised without privilege, would grow into one of the most consequential figures in our national life? His rise was not destiny. It was sheer determination. I first met JP and I never called him that. I called him sir all the time. Until now, I would be privileged to call him sir. First met him when I was still a law student in UP, grieving the assassination of my father and seeking justice after years of delay. And I wasn't sure of what reception awaited me. I decided to seek the help of the Secretary of Justice. He welcomed me with empathy, respect, and without condescension. He said, which fraternity do you belong to? Mga tiga-UP ganyan, eh. He asked. I said, I'm an Epsilonian. I replied. He said, I'm a Sigma Rho. He countered. I said, well, I belong to the oldest fraternity in Asia. I said, and he answered, well, President Marcos is an Epsilonian, and he appointed me as one of his principal advisors. To which I replied, but it took a brilliant Epsilonian like President Marcos to appoint a brilliant Sigma Rho. There were no promises that day, only his instruction for the NBI to re-examine my father's case. But before I left his office, his words stayed with me. He said, when you finish law school, come see me and join my office. I was wondering what it was all about, but I never forgot it. I treasured it, in fact. The simple invitation became the foundation of a friendship grounded not in politics, but in humanity and compassion. He stood by me in moments that mattered. When my mother was unjustly arrested during martial law, naglalaruan ng mga politiko sa Zambales, I ran to him. He slammed his desk and said, she was never on the list, and I stressed that to them. That's pure politics. You know what he did? He made me work for it. He told me to go to Camp Olivas in Pampanga, literally in the lion's den, and confront the very formidable General Tomas Diaz, who was a cousin of Congressman Tony Magsaysay Diaz. I was accompanied, of course, by Senator Angara, my insurance. But nonetheless, we got him out. We got my mother out after a not too pleasant argument. Then and there I knew he ensured that he would never help you unless you help yourself, as he did in life. He helped only those willing to fight for what was right. Hindi siya magpapagamit sa iyo. Kailangan ipaglaban mo yung kailangan mong paglaban. We did not always walk the same path. After the killing of my friend and schoolmate, fellow Atenean Evilio Javier, I told him frankly, as I told several allies then, including President Marcos, that I could no longer continue to support the administration. But I wasn't moving parties. He respected my honesty. Years later, when he was detained, I was among the first. We have another picture in the front page. That wasn't the point. I was the first to visit him at his cell in Camp Karingal. Friendship, after all, is measured in adversity. And I was proud to do that. In 1980, when I became mayor of Olongapo, he honored me by coming all the way to Olongapo, and he administered the oath of office upon this representation as mayor of Olongapo. I was 35, he was 56. I then showed him Subic Bay, sharing a vision many thought impossible, a deep water harbor transformed into a future free port. He right away understood its potential instantly. Hindi kailangan mag-isip. Alam niya na kagad kung anong gagawin niya. We disagreed over the removal of the U.S. bases. After all, Central Luzon was going to be severely affected. And after all, we had just been hit by a cataclysmic eruption of Mount Pinatubo the year before. He took the position he believed in the removal of bases, but in 1991, while the Senate was trying to pass on second reading the Bases Conversion Development Act, I and my people and my wife went to Congress and sought him out. He understood us right away, understood the severity of our people's plight. Pinatubo had devastated us. Clark Field was looted. Our economy teetered. I went to him and said, our people's rice bowls, nabasag po lahat yung hapagkainan namin. And they've been broken. We're suffering. Sir, I said, do you remember the vision I shared when you administered my office as mayor of Olongapo? And I said, we must make the free port real. Despite the bill being late in the process, he acted swiftly. He spoke with Senator Shahani, Senator Angara, Senate President Joey Salonga, who finally said, we remove the bases. We must now help the people who bore the cost. Tens of thousands of people from Central Luzon came daily, particularly from Olongapo, to plead. JPE saw them, and he felt their struggle. He helped. When the BCDA law passed, along with SBMA, with just a handful of crucial provisions. It changed history. Subic rose, then Clark, and later Cagayan, which he authored, and Zamboanga as free ports. It was an honor for JPE to recognize the role we played in the success of Subic. But the truth is, without JPE, Subic and Clark would not be the success they became. She was one of the few senators who understood what the free port was, competing with Hong Kong and making sure that it was a special customs territory, separate from the country. Our friendship was not defined by agreement, but by honesty. He was direct, blunt, and even if he disagreed, he told you immediately. But when he believed in you, he supported you completely. Huwag kang magugulat. Mukhang leon, pero may pusong mamon. Hahabulin mo lang at palalabasin mo yung tunay na character ni Juan Ponce Enrile. People will debate his legacy. Ganyan tayo mga Pilipino. As they should. Mag-debate na kayo hanggang gusto ninyo. Anyone who stands at the heart of power for decades, nasa gitna siya, tumaya siya, through storms, transitions, and crisis, will face both admiration and severe criticism. JPE lived with contradictions, shouldered impossible expectations, and made decisions others feared to make. Few men have carried such burdens for so long. Antindi. Talagang naninindigan. Minumura kaliwat kanan, pero talaga may paninindigan. And one thing I must tell you, he never fled the country. Inaatake siya kaliwat kanan. Hindi siya nagpakita na naka-wheelchair. Hindi siya nagpakita na natatakot. Hindi siya umalis, sinarap niya ang mga nanunuliksa at lumabas yung tunay na pagkatao niya. Yet beyond politics, there were lighter days. Birthdays, celebrations, and long talks about where the Philippines should go. Even after the Senate years, our conversations continued. I don't know if Katrina remembers. She called me one night. Her father was in a condo. In fact, I visited him in the hospital and I asked all the people, parang standing room orchestra yung kanyang hospital room. And I said, lumabas nga kayong lahat dyan. Ako si Dr. Gordon ng Red Cross. Baka makahawa pa kayo dyan at makasama pa kayo. And indeed, they did. This time I went to the condo, and what was he doing? He was in the dark with a little light. He had a computer with a big magnifying glass, and he was reading. Reading was something that he never forsook. And I can tell you, pinagalitan pa ako, nagbabasa ka ba? And I remember some of the books he recommended to me, and I looked for it in my library last night. The Accidental Superpower, America. And he was looking at what was happening in the West Philippine Sea and was, in fact, tutoring me on what was going to happen in the future in this part of the world. Before he passed, and before I do that, I sat beside him somewhere here for a long time. And it never ceased to amaze me what this man was capable of. Yung iba, lumilipad, nakikipag-chismis. But this man was memorizing the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. Ewan kung maintindihan ni Senator Subirio. Naintindihan niya. No? But believe you me, I read that in Ateneo and pati ako nahilo. Ang haba nun. But he was memorizing it. He was preparing not to be senile, not to be cared for. He was practicing his mind all the time. Pwede nyo may memory niya. Subukan nyo basahin yung Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. Baka dumugo ang ilong ninyo. Before he passed, he said quietly, and I heard this from a friend, If I hurt people along the way, forgive me. I never meant to. And I know he was capable of that. Walang kaduda-duda sa aking kaisipan niyan. Those words came from a formidable, sharp-witted man who shaped so much of our political life, one who carried the weight of a lifetime from birth without progeny to struggling for an education and making sure he got his education and used it for his country. He carried the weight of a lifetime spent in the arena, political, moral, and personal. To Christina, Jack, Katrina, and the entire Enrile family, and all the grandchildren and great-grandchildren, Kate and I extend our deepest sympathies. I honor not only the public figure, but the husband, father, and pillar you knew intimately. To the nation, I say, remember him in full. In my days studying philosophy in my alma mater, I remember what one of our professors would say: reality manifests itself in profiles. Profiles. Ngayong araw na ito makikita mong profile. Tomorrow ito, the next day iba. And to the nation, I say remember him in full. Not as a single headline or chapter, but as a man who rose from poverty, navigated impossible paths, wrestled with contradictions, endured controversies, and remained through it all a mind of uncommon brilliance and a spirit of exceptional will. Loved and served his country as he could to the last breath of his body. And I know that for a fact, knowing him. May not agree with it, take my word for it, that was what he is. Our paths did not always align. Pati kami, nag-aaway kumisan, but we always end up beautifully. But they converge whenever duty and principle called in. In those moments, we found friendship, respect, something that we have lost in this country. Respect. And shared purpose. Again, something that we should remind ourselves of. Shared visions, shared struggles, shared victories. Juan Ponce Enrile lived an extraordinarily long life. Sabi nila 101, sabi ng iba 104. Long in service, long in struggle, long in influence, and long in the memories of our people. Challenges that would have broken lesser men only made him stand firmer. Today, I bid farewell to the man I knew as a father, if I may, a mentor, a friend, a fighter, a thinker, and one of the most indomitable forces in our nation's political history. May he rest in the peace he earned across a lifetime of service and sacrifice. I'm sure you'll be happy with him, our Lord in heaven. Thank you all very much.
The former president, Honorable Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, will now deliver her eulogy.
To the family of Mother Johnny Ponce Enrile, my deepest condolences. Senate President Soto, honorable senators, ladies and gentlemen. Juan Ponce Enrile will surely go down in history as one of the most awe-inspiring political figures of our time. Truly a legend in his own lifetime. To many, the legend is rooted in his role as the formidable Secretary of Defense during the martial law years. But he grew beyond that legend with the sheer force of his intelligence, political skill, and powerful presence. He became the most enduring public servant of our era, sometimes intimidating, but always respected by friend and foe alike for his unsurpassed brilliance. Beyond his public achievements, Manang Johnny combined intellect with personal loyalty and kindness. My family remembers this well. And so, of the 5 minutes I was given to make this eulogy, may I spend a couple of minutes about our own personal memories. During martial law, from time to time, my father, former President Diosdado Macapagal, was in limbo. But he sometimes needed to make small requests from the government for minor matters. Because he could no longer reach President Marcos Sr. directly, Dad would write a note, wait for Senator Enrile, Secretary Enrile at that time, at a diplomatic reception, hand it to him, and quietly explain his request. I know of no instance in which Secretary Enrile ever turned my father down, and he unfailingly gave him the dignity due to a former president. For this, my family and I will always have a big place in our hearts and memories for Manang Johnny. So for the baptism of my son, Dato, we asked him to be godfather. It was a role that he warmly accepted. Many years later, I was executive director of the Garment and Textile Export Board and found myself colliding with powerful interests. A Senate hearing was convened against me. And in that hearing, Senator Enrile declared, Gloria Macapagal Arroyo is like Caesar's wife. She is not only without sin, she also appears without sin. Oh, that made my day and helped my career. We were senators together in the 10th Congress, and I had a chance to marvel at his mastery, especially when he sponsored the comprehensive tax reform of 1997. When I was president, he sponsored the Human Security Act of 2007, something which our country needed to address the threat of terrorism to the national security of the country. I was still president when Senator Enrile became Senate President Enrile. Under his leadership, the Senate passed many measures, a lot of them really important to my administration. May I just mention a few of them? The Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program Extension Act, the Expanded Senior Citizens Act, and the Real Estate Investment Act for social reform as well as for improving the investment climate. In the aftermath of the Maguindanao massacre, he was in Malacanang Palace working late into the night, helping me craft my proclamation of martial law in Maguindanao. Manang Johnny lived many lives in one lifetime. Successful lawyer, bank chairman, insurance commissioner, customs commissioner, finance secretary, justice secretary, defense secretary, batasang pambansa member, congressman, senator, senate president, and finally, chief presidential legal counsel. Few Filipinos have served the Republic in so many capacities, across so many eras, with such longevity and impact. The sharpness of his mind matched his longevity. Even in his later years, he stayed intellectually awesome, arguing with precision, recalling history with detail and offering counsel grounded in decades of experience. He was, up to the end, a statesman of rare endurance. His clarity of thought and force of will continued to shape national discourse well into his twilight years. As we bid farewell to Manong Johnny Ponce Enrile, Secretary, Senate President, we remember not only the legend that he became, but also, for my person and my family, the man of loyalty, depth, and humanity behind the legend. His imprint in our nation and the lives he touched will endure. May a grateful nation remember him with respect and appreciation. Manong Johnny, rest in peace and thank you.
Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord lift his countenance upon you and give you peace. And give you peace. The Lord make his face to shine upon you. And be gracious unto you. And be gracious. The Lord be gracious, gracious unto you. Amen.
The Honorable Erwin Tulfo will now deliver his eulogy.
To Miss Katrina and to the entire Ponce Enrile clan, former President Arroyo, Senate President Vicente Soto, colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We gather today in solemn remembrance of Juan Ponce Enrile, a statesman whose long and storied career left a profound imprint on our nation. As former Defense Secretary, former Senate President, former Presidential Chief Legal Advisor, he embodied a level of service, discipline, and intellectual rigor that few in public office ever attain. His passing marks the end of an era once shaped by steady hand, his remarkable memory, and his unparalleled understanding of the laws and institutions that anchor our republic to this day. I speak today not only in my public capacity, but also as someone who deeply admired him. His counsel, though often concise, carried the weight of decades of experience. About a month before he departed, I had the privilege of visiting him in his home. I went there seeking guidance, earnestly desiring insight on how to become an effective legislator, how to navigate the responsibilities of public office, and how to serve with both conviction and humility. He received me with characteristic sharpness and clarity. His advice, delivered without flourish, was grounded in the principle that guided his own life: preparation, discipline, and fidelity to duty. That conversation, quiet yet profound, became a lasting source of strength and direction for me. It is a memory I hold with great respect and gratitude. In the cabinet, I often saw another side of him, one defined by measured encouragement. The Secretary of Social Welfare, before I would present programs and assessments before the cabinet, and he would listen intently. He never subjected me to difficult or combative questioning, unlike other cabinet members. Instead, he afforded me the rare comfort of trust. I was always grateful for that, grateful that someone of his stature appreciated my work, and that his silence, often mistaken for severity, could also mean approval. His confidence strengthened my resolve to serve with integrity. I admired Juan Ponce Enrile for his intellect, his tenacity, and the unwavering discipline that characterizes public life. His legacy is complex, vast, and undeniably significant. History will remember him as a man whose influence shaped institutions and whose decisions echoed across generations. But for those of us who are fortunate enough to learn from him directly, he will also be remembered for his generosity of wisdom and the steadiness of his presence. As we bid him farewell, may we honor his memory by upholding the values he exemplified: dedication to service, clarity of purpose, and a steadfast commitment to the nation. May he rest in peace, and may his legacy continue to guide us in the work he leaves behind. Rest well, Sir Johnny Enrile, and thank you for your service, sir.
The Honorable Robin Hood Padilla will now deliver his eulogy.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Pagpupugay po at pagsaludo sa bayani ng Inang Bayang Pilipinas, Juan Ponce Enrile. At akin pong pakikiramay sa pamilya, kay Ma'am Katrina, at pakikiisa po sa aming ginoong tagapangulo, Senator Tito Soto, at sa amin pong dating Pangulo, Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, at sa lahat po ng mga senador at sa mga naging senador. Mga mahal kong kababayan, sa maiksing panahon po, ako po ay nagkaroon ng personal na karanasan sa ating bayani. Ito po yung panahon na ako po ay naging senador. Naalala ko pa po nung panahon na kami po ay nakakapasok pa sa Malacanang. Ako po ay kanyang pinatawag. Ako po ay laging nasa gilid-gilid lang. Pero nung panahon na yun, ako po'y pinahanap niya sa kanyang aide. Nagulat po ako. Ang sabi ng aide niya, pinapatawag ka ni Enrile. Natakot po ako. Sabi ko, bakit kaya? Ako po'y pumunta, siya po'y nakaupo sa gilid. Meron po siyang magandang pwesto sa tabi ng pintuan. Pinaupo po niya ako. Sabi niya, meron ka mga panukala. Opo, alin po doon? Gusto kitang makausap. Ngayon po ba? Huwag dito maingay, sabi niya. Pupuntahan mo ko sa bahay. lalo po akong natakot sa bahay niyo po. Oo, kailangan tayong mag-usap. So, pagkatapos po ng ilang araw, dumating po ako sa kanyang bahay. At doon po, nagulat po ako, lahat po ng paborito kong kakanin, yun po ang kanyang hinanda. Isa po kagulat-gulat dahil nagtatanong po siya siguro sa aking mga kasama kung ano po yung aking paborito. Nung nakaupo na po kami, sabi niya, ano ba yung mga panukala mo? Sabi, ito po, meron po akong Senate Bill 453. Ito po yung gusto ko po sanang gawing holiday, yung pong September 21, at kilalanin yung mga unsung heroes. Kumunot po ang kanyang noo. Ito po yung senyales para sa akin na magpaliwanag. Sabi ko sa kanya, alam niyo po, ako po ay dating komunista at hanggang ngayon ay sosyalista. Ako po ay namundok at naiintindihan ko po kung ano ang ipinaglaban ninyo noong September 21. At ako'y naniniwala po na sinagip po ninyo ang bayan para tayo po ay maging komunista. Sa haba po ng aking paliwanag, ang sabi niya po sa akin, alam mo ba, ang pinag-aaralan ko ngayon ay planets, space. Ganun po ba? Ako pinaguluhan dahil mula sa, napunta po kami sa space. Ang solar system, sabi niya, iisa lang yan. Maraming star system sa space, sabi niya. Di na po ako nakapagpigil. Sabi ko po, ano po ang ibig niyo pong sabihin? Sabi niya, iho, doon ka mula sa isang panukala mo. Huwag mo munang i-touch ang patungkol diyan sa September 21 dahil marami kang makakaaway. Ang pag-usapan nating dalawa, yung panukala mo na gusto mong amendahan ang konstitusyon. Yun, tutulungan kita. Pupunta ako sa Senado, gawin mo akong witness mo. Ang sabi niya sa akin, maraming nang mamaliit sa'yo, pero hindi kita mamaliitin. Palalakasin ko pa ang loob mo. Sapagkat iyaan ang pagpasok ng mga dayuhang mamumuhunan ang magsasagip sa ekonomiya ng Pilipinas. At ang pagbabalik sa parliamentary system ang kailangan ng Pilipinas. Alam niyo po, hindi po ako nabigo. Sapagkat nung dumating po ang hearing namin, siya po ang nag-iisa kong naging witness. At sa loob po ng 2 oras, wala po siyang ipinaliwanag kung hindi ang kagandahan ng papasukin natin ang ating mga foreign investors. At hindi lang po yun. Pagkatapos po niyang mag-witness sa akin, nung kanya pong 99th birthday, akala ko po tapos na po. Hindi po, personal po niya po akong tinawagan at sinabi niyang kailangan kang dumating sa birthday ko. Dahil meron tayong tipan na hindi ka titigil na maipasa yung pinangako mo sa aking panukala. Yan po ang aking hindi makakalimutan. Isang taong alamat, isang taong pag nasasabi po natin isang naglalakad na library, isang kasaysayan, hindi po siya napabilang sa mga nang maliit sa akin. Maraming salamat po. Mabuhay po kayo.
The Honorable Jinggoy Ejercito Estrada will now deliver his eulogy.
Good morning. In behalf of my parents, former President Joseph Estrada and former First Lady Senator Loy Ejercito Estrada, I'd like to express our deepest condolences to the family of my mentor, Juan Ponce Enrile. Former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, Senate President Tito Soto, my colleagues in the Senate, former colleagues here in the Senate, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I am fortunate to have received from my Creator a longer time here on earth. That's longevity, not immortality. Those were the very words uttered by Juan Valentin Forganan, better known to the nation as Juan Ponce Enrile, JPE, or to us who were privileged to be close to him, simply Manong Johnny. Beyond the memes that attempted to parody the long, storied life of one of the most consequential political figures in recent history is a man who was, in truth, larger than life. And I am fortunate not only to have worked alongside him in the halls of this august chamber, but to have been mentored by him and given the rare chance to know him up close. Hindi kaila sa publiko ang pagiging malapit niya sa aming pamilya bago pa man kami nagkasama dito sa Senado. Makailang ulit niyang ipinamalas ang pagpapalaga niya sa amin, lalong-lalo na po sa aking ama. I can never forget him, nor repay him for this extraordinary act of kindness he wrote in his memoir, recalling how my father insisted on accompanying him in a closed van on the way to the NBI headquarters sometime in February 1990 when he was arrested, just to make sure Manong Johnny was safe from harm and spared from further humiliation by a media crowd eager to capture his fingerprinting and mugshots. Yet, he did repay my father many, many times over, and that profound expression of gratitude extended even to us, his children. Kung noon ay dinamayan siya ng aking ama, ibinalik naman niya ito nung ako at ang aking ama naman ang inaresto at ikinulong. Isa siya sa mga kaibigan na nagpatunay at tumupad sa mga salitang walang iwanan. In the final hours leading up to my father's departure from Malacanang, hours marked by emotional farewells and deep political uncertainty, one person stood out and gave a crucial piece of advice. Amid a flurry of discussions and on the eve of our eventual leaving from the palace, Manong Johnny went there and told my father to remain strong, especially for our family. He then whispered and advised my father not to sign anything else except a prepared official statement which he had carefully read, reviewed, and approved, lest anything else be twisted as a resignation letter. That short but emphatic counsel proved vital, and it was one of the pillars upon which my father stood to show the nation that he was unjustly removed from office, that his departure from Malacanang was for no other reason than to avoid bloodshed. When the Arroyo administration assumed power, Manong Johnny was asked to help. He agreed, but with one clear condition, that he would never abandon my father, whom he considered as a dear friend. Sinabi niya, tutulong ako kung ano ang kaya ko para sa ating bansa. Huwag niyo lang ako palayuin kay Erap. Mas kailangan niya ako ngayon. That was Manong Johnny, a true and faithful friend indeed. Sa huling pagkakataon, nung ako naman ang kailangan niya samahan sa detention facility sa Camp Crame, mahigit isang dekada na nakakalipas, literal na sinamahan po ako ni Manong Johnny. But levity aside, words are not enough to describe the warmth and fatherly affection shown to me by Manong Johnny. The very first thing he did after the Supreme Court granted him bail in 2015 and ordered his release from hospital detention was to visit me and Senator Bong Revilla to lift up our spirits, to tell us to keep the faith and to never lose hope. Gusto ko happy ka, he said in his immortal campaign slogan. Pero si Manong Johnny, marahil, hindi alam na nakakarami. Ay masaya na kung ang ulam sa hapagkainan ay isda. When Senate reporters once asked him for the secret to his longevity, he simply said that aside from reading his mental calisthenics, he preferred fish and vegetables. Namumukod tangi ang karne norte na gawa ng kanyang anak na si Katrina sa nakahilingan niyang kainin itong mga nakalipas na taon. At mahilig din pala si Manong Johnny maglaro ng Bejeweled sa kanyang tablet noon. Hindi man siya techie, pero sa edad niya na 89, nahilig din siya sa larong uso noon sa kanyang mini iPad. Enjoy na enjoy siya, and he played it seemingly oblivious to whatever storms were swirling around him. Yes, even while the late Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago was lividly attacking him on the Senate floor. They were both colorful characters in their own peculiar ways. His insatiable appetite for learning, his studious and stern discipline, and his legendary intelligence aside, sa araw-araw na buhay, napakasimpleng tao ni Juan Ponce Enrile. Dala niya sa kanyang pagtanda ang kanyang mahirap at payak na pinagmulan. At simple man, hindi siya naging maramot sa pagbabahagi ng kanyang talino bilang isang batikang abogado, mambabatas at lingkod bayan. Isa ako sa makapagpatunay nito, lalo na nung ako'y nagsisimula pa lamang sa Senado. He once said, medyo mainit ang ulo niya nung araw niya, the Senate is not an institution for learning, not a classroom or a venue for teaching, but a constitutional body tasked with making weighty political and legal decisions. That is why a senator, whether veteran or neophyte, must always come prepared. That is one of the teachings imparted to me by Manong Johnny, one that I carry to this day. So when he was lecturing about this in session, a neophyte senator, Senator Lapid, charmed Manong by saying, Mr. President, di po ba sabi niyo, problema mo, sagot ko? Eh, nga ang problema ko, hindi ko maintindihan, bago po ako rito. Yun po sinabi ni Senator Lapid. Kaya nga po ako nagpapaturo sa inyo. Laughter enveloped the session hall, and right there and then, Manong Johnny and Senator Lapid became very, very good friends. So whenever I had any questions or misgivings, I never hesitated to seek advice from one of the most brilliant minds in this chamber. And he was always willing to share his thoughts. He was both a gentleman and a statesman par excellence. When he was about to be installed as Senate President in November 2008, some colleagues urged him not to allow the then Senate President to resign, instead force him out. Manong Johnny did not budge. He stood his ground and said they should leave it to him how he wished to treat a friend. And if they disagreed, he was prepared to forget about the change in the leadership. Such was the gentleness and character of Manong as a friend and a colleague, a side of him that not many have had a glimpse of. To most people, former Senate President Enrile will be remembered as a central political figure who served under 8 presidents across more than 6 decades. A central figure in many critical times and political upheavals this nation has witnessed. But to me, Manong Johnny is and will always be nothing less than family. Manong Johnny is irrepressible, irreplaceable, and incomparable. A very, very tough act to follow. Kahit sa puso ng mga empleyado natin dito sa Senado, ang kanyang kakaibang pagkalinga sa kapakanan ng maliliit na kawani ay hindi nila makakalimutan. Isa siyang tunay na alamat. And to his family, Ma'am Christina, his children Jack and Katrina, and his grandchildren, we are all grateful for your generosity in supporting Manong Johnny throughout all seasons of his colorful and challenging political career, even at the great cost of time away from all of you. And as we bid him farewell, I find comfort in his words, words that reveal the heart of the man behind the public figure, captured so eloquently in the closing lines of his memoir. To have been able to serve my country to all these decades of trials and uncertainty, and to have enjoyed the sweet and simple joys of a long and productive life is the best reward of all. Gone from our sight, but never from our hearts. Maraming salamat to my mentor, Manong Johnny. Hindi ka namin makakalimutan.
The Honorable Joseph Victor Ejercito will now deliver his eulogy.
Sa pamilya po, si Manong Johnny, kay Katrina, kay Jack at sa buong pamilya ng Enrile, sa ating pong Senate President Vicente Soto, sa ating pong former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, sa ating pong mga kasamahan, sa pong magandang umaga sa inyo lahat. Sa dami po na nagsalita at sa mga nagsaad ng nagawa ni Manong Johnny Enrile, hindi na sana ako tatayo. Ngunit hindi pwedeng palagpasin dahil ako po ay ang unang paghakbang ko rito sa Senado. Talagang panay ka ba ang aking pong naramdaman? Dahil no ako po ay nanalo bilang senador noong 2013, alam naman natin ang Senado ay ibang level na. Nung paglakad ko rito, ang manakasalubong ko, si Miriam Defensor Santiago, Frank Drilon, nasabi ko, naku, mukhang ibang level talaga to, kaya ko ba ito? Tama ba ang pwesto kong pinasukan? At nung paupo na ako, during the first session day, ang katabi ko naman si Juan Ponce Enrile. Dahil alphabetical po. Ngunit kakaiba po, sa halip na ako po ay ma-intimidate, sa halip na ako maging hindi po palagay, bilang isang seatmate, ay naging komportable lagi ako kinakausap ni Manong Johnny. And from time to time, no, he will impart the words of wisdom and knowledge to a neophyte senator like me. Nakakatuwa po na minsan pag may pag-uusapan ho kami, siya pa ho ang pupunta sa aking opisina. Nasabi ko, ako na lang, hindi, hintayin mo ako dyan. At ilang beses na ako'y dinalaw niya sa aking pong opisina. JP was a natural mentor, sharing wisdom generously to the young people, to the young legislators like me. At sabi nga na aking kapatid, during his idle time, pag hindi siya nagbabasa, siya naglalaro sa kanyang iPad. Sabi ko, Manong Johnny, ba't kayo naglalaro? Parang aking isipan ay tuloy-tuloy na gumagana. So that is probably the reason why he maintains his sharpness through the years. Nabanggit din po na siguro yung isa sa akin pinaka hindi makakalimutan na pangyayari na kami po yung mag-seatmate ay yung po pinakaaway nila ni Senator Miriam Santiago. Tinayo po ang podium dyan sa harapan, si Senator Enrile, ako po. At talagang matindi ang away nila, gigil na gigil si Senator Santiago. Kinakabahan ako, baka mabato yung baso. Ganun kagalit, katindi ang away nila nung panahon na yun. But Manong Johnny would maintain his composure, looking at his iPad and looking at Senator Santiago and flashing that famous sheepy smile of his. Napaka-cool po ni Manong Johnny. Hindi po siya napipikon. At I will never also forget those times, the most difficult times in our lives. He was always there to provide comfort, just like a father to all of us. Hindi ko po malilimutan. Sa akin po lahat ng laban, kahit na lagi pong hindi po tayo medyo mabigat ang laban, nung huli, nagkasalubong po kami sa somewhere in Bicol, yung motorcade ko dahil ako po independent, nag-iisa, na umiikot, nakasalubong ko po yung convoy niya at kilala ko po yung sasakyan. Pinigil po kami at bumaba ako. Bumaba rin po siya ng sasakyan and he hugged me. Sabi ko, Manong Johnny, mahirap ang laban ko. Sabi niya, huwag kang mawawala ng pag-asa. Kayang-kaya mo yan. At nandito ako para sumuporta sa iyo. Manong Johnny, it has been a privilege and an honor to be your seatmate, your colleague. Ako'y natutuwa na ako'y nabigyan ng pagkakataon na makasama ang isang masasabi nating legend in Philippine politics and government service na hanggang sa huling hininga ni Juan Ponce Enrile, siya po ay nagsisilbi sa ating bayan. In my last encounter with him, kahit na medyo malabo ng kanyang mata, I would always approach him sa mga ledak at yung, I think yung last was the birthday in Malacanang. Sa Manong Johnny, si JB po. Sabi niya, "Ay JB, kamusta? Kamusta mo ako sa daddy mo? Pagbutihin mo." So, even at that advanced age, he never forgets to show his care and compassion. Manong Johnny, sana po balang araw, alam kong marami tayong hamon na kinakaharap ngayon. Pero yung pangarap sa bawat Pilipino na gusto mo maging happy ang bawat Pilipino, balang araw ay sana ay maging katotohanan. Maraming salamat sa iyong pagsisilbi sa sambayan ng Pilipino.
As the deer panteth for the water, so my soul longeth after thee. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. You alone are my strength and shield. To you alone may my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. You're my friend and you are my brother, even though you are a king. I love you more than any other, so much more than anything. Oh, you alone are my strength and shield. To you alone may my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. And I long to worship thee.
The Majority Leader, Honorable Juan Miguel Zubiri, will now deliver his eulogy.
To the Ponce Enrile family, Ma'am Katrina, and all the children, grandchildren, nephews, nieces, my deepest condolences. To former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, to Senate President Tito Soto, to all my colleagues in the Senate. It is hard to believe that the beloved Manong Johnny, the former Senate President, Juan Ponce Enrile, is truly gone. He remained so vital, so present, so relevant to the nation up to his last days. And it was no stretch of the imagination to believe that he would outlive us all and be around forever. As a matter of fact, he probably was the oldest secretary ever to hold office. I think the Guinness Book of World Records should give him that distinction. Just last year, he was here with us to receive our Senate resolution honoring him for his life's work. He was over 100 years old, already wheelchair bound, but his mind was as sharp as ever, And he gave an insightful and inspiring message of gratitude. No script, no preparation. And it was a moment to behold when we listened to him give his acceptance speech. 1 year later, here we are, honoring him again, one last time, for this singularly brilliant man. Manong Johnny was, with no exaggeration, a giant among us. We learn our history, he lived it, shaped it even. We dream of change, he led a coup that paved the way for a revolution. He was never one to sit and watch history unfold as he turned the pages himself. It is hard to imagine that this country would look like without Manong Johnny and his maverick leadership and the sheer brilliance of the good senator. Among the many hats he has worn, he was Finance Secretary, Justice Secretary, Defense Secretary, a member of the House of Representatives, a member of the Batasan Pambansa, a senator, and one of our longest serving senators at that. And of course, we fondly know him as the Senate President that we loved. And he continued to serve his country until his last days, offering sharp and invaluable insight as the Chief Presidential Legal Counsel. He is the mind behind landmark laws such as the Comprehensive Tax Reform Law, the Human Security Act, and the Philippine Competition Act, many others. And he always provided crucial legal wisdom and questioning that helped strengthen all the measures that he steered as Senate leader. But despite his towering and enduring presence in Philippine politics, he was humble and hardworking as anyone. When he was a senator, he was here every day. And he was always working, and he would always make sure that he opened the sessions. And when I was a neophyte senator back in the 14th Congress, he readily took me as majority leader when he was elected as Senate President. He believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, when I didn't believe that I could do the job of being a majority leader. And I could fondly recall that there was a day that they called me to the presidential suite of the Sofitel. And I did not know why. It was Senator Edangara who called me there. And when I came up to the presidential suite, I saw Manong Johnny, the likes of course, Senator Angara, Senator Marojas, and many other distinguished senators that were there. And I said, I'm in the presence of great leaders of the Senate. I was just in my first year, a year and a half in this institution. And it was then when they asked me to be his majority floor leader, and I said, I've just been a year old in the Senate. I'm at all with so many of these leaders. How can I be their majority leader? That was the time when Senator Drilon was there, Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago, Senator Manny Villar, and many other distinguished senators at that time. And Senator Nene Pimentel and all. And he took me aside with Senator Angara. He was tapping my chest and said, "You can do it, Migs. I believe in you and I will help you." When he said that, I was completely disarmed and I said, I will do my best, Mr. President. He showed me the ropes of legislation like a father to a son. And like a father to a son, he could be strict and quick to anger. We know that when we make our mistakes. But at the same time, he was comforting and understanding when he saw that you were trying your best. And I remember in that room, Senator Dick Gordon was there as well in that meeting. And more than anything, when he was comforting and supportive, was what made him a great leader. As mentioned earlier by Senator Jinggoy, he would mentor also Senator Lito Lapid, and many of us. He was a formidable statesman, but a kind mentor. He was always generous with his time, always ready to pass his knowledge forward, and always ready to shepherd less experienced colleagues. And I'm very, very grateful to have learned under his wing. And he must have taught me well because this is my fourth time as majority leader. And, you know, he didn't make my work very difficult. I did not have to make necessary motions on the floor because he would rule so well in the rostrum that nobody else could question his ruling. And that was it. And we continued the day. I treasure my memories of our Senate caucuses with Senate President Enrile. I would remember Senator Lacson, Senator Honasan, myself, and many other senators would sit in the Senate President's lounge upstairs when he would talk about his previous experiences and the discussions that we had on the floor. And he would say, if we would try to amend the law, like the Immigration Act, which was a 1935 law, and several other laws, he would tell us, I know that law because I helped craft that law many, many years ago, 50 years ago. And he would explain to us the rationale of each and every law. And we were grateful to him for all that experience he was sharing with us. He called it, and you know, my dear colleagues, his brilliance. No, we were trying to absorb the legal brilliance and his deep institutional knowledge. And I would think, here's a man who has seen it all and lived it all. And still in 2011, I was surprised when he said, and this was during my resignation in 2011, from the rostrum, he couldn't believe that I was going to resign. I think it was the first time a senator ever resigned out of delicadeza. He called it a rare show of moral courage, saying it was the first time in his memory that the senator showed honor ahead of himself. I was humbled and grateful to hear those kind words, and they continue to guide me to this day. Honor before self, bayon bago sarili. To Ma'am Christina, Jack, Katrina, and all of Manong Johnny's loved ones, my heart is with you. Thank you for sharing Manong Johnny with us. We in the Senate will always uphold this legacy of service, and we promise that. To end my eulogy, I would just like to quote the last two stanzas of one of Manong Johnny's favorite poems, and I know that he used to like the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, Tito Dick, is because he used to carry that booklet with him everywhere he'd go. And whenever I'd go up to the rostrum, he would be reading it and writing notes on the side. I think that should be put in a museum because he wrote a lot of notes on the side of that beautiful little book. And to end, I would just like to quote the last two stanzas of a poem from William Ernst Henley called Invictus. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am master of my faith, and I'm captain of my soul. Indeed, Manong Johnny was the master of his fate and the captain of his soul. Once again, my deepest condolences to the Ponce and Enrile family. Thank you.
The Senate President pro tempore, Honorable Panfilo Lacson, will now deliver his eulogy.
Sir, when we both ran for the Senate in the May 2001 midterm elections, you as a veteran legislator and I as a neophyte politician mentored me on the art of campaigning. Unfortunately, the mentor lost. And ironically, the mentor won. After the election, you asked me na sabi mo sa akin, Ping, kunin mo yung aking mga legislative staff. Magagaling yun. Of course I did. So in my first term as a senator, my office was not built from scratch. It was built on trust. 25 years later, they are still with me. When you became our Senate President in the 14th Congress, and I observed how you cared for the Senate employees, That's when I realized that you were actually campaigning for your former legislative staff, as you didn't want them to lose their jobs. But you were right, sir. They were really good. Otherwise, they would not have lasted this long in my office. Juan, Valentin, Puruganan, Ponce, Enrile, JPE, as we have long called him, former Assemblyman, Minister of Defense, Secretary of Justice, Secretary of Finance, Congressman, Senator, Senate President, Presidential Legal Counsel, a man who donned more titles than anyone, and one who remained a public servant until his very last breath. Some would say that JPE walked through history. I say they are wrong. JPE did not simply pass through history. He walked alongside it, making sure that he stood at its center, witnessing every halt and turn, leaving a mark in every stride. But even in his many stories, no one can trivialize or exaggerate who JPE was. No historian, no colleague, no friend. He was more than his career, which spanned 7 or 8 presidents. He was more than his many depictions as a hero or heel, friend or foe. He was more than his place in the annals of history, from being at the heights of power to the lowest caste. He was more than the river boy from Cagayan, the political powerhouse, a looming figure in our society. He was the sum of all our stories as a nation. I vividly remember, as if it were only yesterday, back in the 14th Congress, I had the privilege of standing on this very hall to nominate JPE as the new Senate President after then Senate President Manuel Villar Jr. resigned from his post. With 14 senators supporting the nomination, he formally took his oath as the 21st Senate President of the Republic of the Philippines, taking helm of the institution he helped build from the foundation of democracy. The walls of this chamber would remember the weight of his gavel, his legal acumen, and mental acuity. Most importantly, his unmistakable quality of fairness, as the media would describe, in presiding over the impeachment trial of the late Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Renato Corona. Nasisigurado ko rin pong walang kawani ng Senado na nakaranas maglingkod sa ilalim ng inyong liderato ang hindi sasang-ayon sa tunay na pagkilala at pagtataguyod ni Senate President Enrile sa karapatan ng mga ordinaryong manggagawa. JP will not be lost to memory. That much is certain. As we close his long, often nuanced story, there is a sense that the nation has turned a page, entering a new era. May this dawn be more than just a marker, but a moment of national introspection. May you challenge us to finally distill the enduring lessons from the vast, winding story he leaves behind. Thank you, sir.
The Secretary of the Senate, Attorney Renato Bantug Jr., will now read the title of Senate Resolution Number 30.
Senate Resolution Number 30. Resolution expressing the deepest sympathies and profound condolences of the Senate on the death of the former Senate President, Honorable Juan Ponce Enrile, adopted 17 November 2025, signed Vicente C. Soto III, President of the Senate.
The Senate President, together with the incumbent senators present, will now present the resolution to the family of the late former Senate President, Juan Ponce Enrile. The Senate President, Honorable Vicente Soto III, will now deliver his eulogy.
This day, we not only mourn, but celebrate the life and accomplishments of Mano Johnny. He leaves behind a legacy that not only reverberates and echoes through these walls, but throughout our nation. On behalf of the Philippine Senate and on behalf of my own family, I convey our sincerest and deepest sympathies and condolences to the family of the Juan Ponce Enrile of Philippine history and politics and law. He once walked on this very floor as a senator, proposed legislation, investigated persons, heard testimonies, where he debated crucial points, played crucial roles. He likewise climbed that center chair as president of this chamber, presided over an impeachment trial, clashed words with fellow senators, shook hands with confirmed appointments of the president's cabinet, including the cabinet of President Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo. He was one of us, among many other offices that he held with distinction. As Shakespeare said in Julius Caesar, he was a friend, faithful and just to me. More than that, he was a man who knew the cost of being a public servant. Its impossible choices, its burdens, and frankly, its loneliness. However, he still chose to serve for 6 decades. Juan Ponce Enrile's public service record covers 8 presidencies, as mentioned, from Ferdinand Edralin Marcos in 1968 to Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos in 2025. It was a roller coaster ride in tandem with the history of the Philippines, with high and low points, with choices and chances taken. And through it all, reaching the finish line in the ripe age of 103. Akala nyo, 101, no? 103. We met around the mid-70s when he was Minister of National Defense through my best friend and bowling buddy, Armando Ponce Enrile, his youngest brother. He was a dear friend, Paring Toti, who introduced me, who incidentally went ahead of him a few days ago. And I now recall why Katrina and I were talking just a few days ago while Mano Johnny was in the ICU. It is because of Toti, Paring Toti. So when Mano Johnny goes to the other side, he will be surprised to see Paring Toti waiting for him, the youngest brother, because Katrina never told him that Toti went ahead. Malamang sasabihin ni Mano Johnny, anong ginagawa mo rito? Nauna ka pa sa akin. I had the good fortune of being a senator myself when he was, and being a fledgling senator that I was in 1992. I easily gravitated around the wise and fatherly figure whom I fondly call Mano Johnny. Together with my old senator friends in the 9th Congress who are here present with us. He was a force to reckon with. Wherever it was that he inhabited, in the silence of his room, the logic of his choices, and later the public clamor. His place in history perhaps will take time to steady till the pendulum of judgment by historians and the people settle to its final repose. He had personal, official, and legal battle. In his book, he confesses, I quote, "I have no intention to look good at the expense of others or to settle old scores with anyone. Of my personal battles, I won some and lost some. My survival over the vicissitudes of life, over injustice, cruelty, and my successes, great or small, I can only attribute to God and guts." End of quote. Paalang Manong Johnny, our dear friend, my dear friend, JPE, my president, we love you. Alam namin, happy ka.
On behalf of the family of the late former Senate President Juan Ponce Enrile, Ms. Katrina Ponce Enrile will deliver the response.
Former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, distinguished Senate President, honorable senators, ladies and gentlemen, 23 years. That's how long these halls knew the measured steps of Juan Ponce Enrile. That's how many years you called him Manong Johnny. Not out of obligation, but out of genuine affection for a man who understood something vital. That this chamber's true power lies not in its votes, but in its capacity for grace. Senate President Tito Soto spoke of the loneliness of public service. My father knew that loneliness. A century of impossible choices, of watching allies become adversaries, with shifting political seasons. But here's what sustained him: this chamber. You called him a mentor, but he saw you as teachers too. From the youngest neophyte senator to the most seasoned veteran, he believed each of you carried wisdom this nation needed. When senators knocked on his door, whether from the majority or the minority, from the administration or the opposition, those distinctions dissolved. What mattered was your love for the Philippines. That was the only credential he required. This resolution honors his titles, but you honored something deeper. You proved his deepest faith correct, that the Senate could be more than a battlefield. that Manong Johnny could be both fierce opposition and first counsel. That respect could survive even our deepest divisions. His door is closed now. But what it represented cannot be closed. Not if the Senate he loved is to remain what he believed it could be. On behalf of the Ponce Enrile family, we receive your resolution not just as an honor, but as a promise that in this chamber, wisdom will outweigh politics, that service will transcend self, that Manong Johnny's door is closed, that although Manong Johnny's door is closed, his spirit of mentorship and grace remains forever open. Thank you for the 23 years of calling him Manong Johnny. Thank you for proving him right about what this chamber could be. Maraming salamat po.
This necrological service is hereby declared closed.
Ponce Enrile family and their guests to a luncheon at the Recto Laurel Rooms.
ba ang anak na galing sa kanya sanggol sa iyang sinapupunan paano matatanan hindi ka malilimutan kailan ay pababayaan hindi kita malilimutan kailan ay di pababayaan. Ngunit kahit na malimutan ng ina ang anak niyang tangan, hindi kita malilimutan kailan may di pababayaan hindi kita malilimutan kailan may Bésame mucho, como si fueras anoche la última vez. Bésame, bésame, bésame mucho. Tengo miedo perderte, perderte después. Bésame, bésame mucho, mucho, como si fueras la noche la última vez, sí, la última vez. Bésame mucho, que tengo miedo perderte después. Quiero tenerte muy cerca, mirarme en tus ojos, verte junto a mí. Piensa que tal vez mañana yo ya estaré lejos, muy lejos de ti. Bésame, bésame mucho, mucho, como si fueras la noche la última vez, sí, la bésame mucho, que tengo miedo de perderte después. Pam, 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 pararam, para, 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 param, pam, 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 param, param, para, 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 pam. Quiero tenerte muy cerca, mirarme en tus ojos, verte junto a mí. Piensa que tal vez mañana yo ya estaré lejos, muy lejos de ti. Bésame, bésame mucho, mucho, como si fuera esta noche la última vez, sí, la última. Bésame mucho. Tengo miedo. Bésame, ay, bésame mucho. This song is hard to say because goodbyes are hard to say. But I know it's only for a time. We will meet again someday. The song we've left unsung will keep ringing in my heart till the melodies keep echoing and help me do my part to let the light of our love shine for all the world to see. May your joy and laughter become a part of me. And because I have known you, my life will never be quite the same. May your spirit live through me. The times we spent together, or the happiness and tears of this many special moments will make memories through the years. And when it's time to meet again, I know you by your name, for a friendship lasts forever, and forever stays the same. We are one in the name of the Lord. We are one in the Spirit. We are one in our love. And because I have known you, my life will never be quite the same. May your spirit live through me. Live through me.
Los cantantes.
Will we get you again for one of our affairs?
Opening po na. Thank you po, Senator.
Salamat po, Sen.